This
I
conference
have
will now be recorded.
so let me start with few questions so that it will be I can make the things more you will find it more interesting. First question is whether machine learning is there in your syllabus. So that needs to be checked out. So machine learning can be part of your syllabus. Suppose if you are part of BCA or if you are part of MTech or if you are part of engineering domain. So let me know whether you have machine learning in your subject. So you can in the chat box you can put that particular message. So that will be good for me so that you can I can know whether you know the subject or not. This will be my first question. Second one is otherwise, anyhow, I know that there are many people who are from BCA, MTech background, so maybe they had in their syllabus. Second question is there a difference between AI, ML, and data science? So this is my second question. Is there a difference between AI, ML, and DS? Is there a difference? First of all, check that. Do you have any particular difference or all are same? That needs to be checked out first. Let me check the chat box. If anyone, you can reply just in the chat box. Hope you can see the chat box in your this one. Chat box is available.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
So you can reply in that. I am not seeing the chat box properly. Let me. Hope chat box. Okay. Yes. So next is there is a difference, no doubt. Next, my next question is. Let me proceed. Which programming languages do you prefer to work with machine learning? This will be my next question. Which programming language do you find interesting to work with machine learning? So many are replying Python. Yes, Python is one of the best languages that you may find. Next one is, do you think maths as a necessary evil for ML? This will be my next question. Do you think maths is required? Many people say here what answers they are giving. Let me check. Yes, many are feeling yes, it is required. We cannot avoid it because it is a must. In fact, we have to consider maths as a must subject for doing ML. Next, which areas of maths do you think are critical in ML? So if you are talking about mathematics, can you just make a guess which particular areas of mathematics are critical for machine learning? Okay, statistics. Some people are replying it's a statistics. Fine. Then any other things are there? Any other particular things you find interesting with respect to machine learning? Okay, we'll see that anyhow in my discussions I'll be regression. Okay, regression can be thought of as a particular concept in machine learning. It's also a part of probability in fact. And then probability, yes, true probability is another one. We'll see the rest other things, what things are there we can see when we visit those areas specifically. So in this context, I'll be talking about my introduction, then probability for machine learning, then I'll be talking about statistics for machine learning. The next one is linear algebra for machine learning. Then I'll be giving concluding thoughts relating to this particular topic. So there are three things what you can see here is probability, statistics, and linear algebra. There is one more differentiation which I have not considered. It's also part and parcel of machine learning concepts. Even data science also, if you are studying machine learning, AI, wherever you go, differentiation is required. And by seeing these topics, you cannot feel that these are the things which you have not learned. One or the other day, or in your either maybe in your 8th, 9th, 10th, or maybe in your PU1 or 2, you might have gone through these all concepts. No doubt about that. All these concepts are known to you, but what actually happened is we have lost touch for a quite long time. And some people may be working in this, but what actually happened is we have lost touch with these particular topics, which can be considered. And do you feel that, suppose if I say these all topics are there, we have lost touch and we may not get the ideas, or we may not get familiar or familiarized or customized or acclimatized with these topics? It's not so. You can practice yourself, no doubt about that. Practice these particular things, you can learn. And one more doubt always arises. Sir, again studying probability, statistics, and linear algebra from day one or from scratch will be difficult. So there are some techniques which I will be teaching you or which I will be telling you that will be beneficial. You need not have to learn them from scratch. You just have to go through the concepts and you can understand. Everything need not be learned from probability, statistics, and linear algebra. So that is one more way of learning machine learning. That is, you can call it as a reverse engineering process that can be done. So let me proceed ahead with what is there in mathematics, or what actually what mathematics is required for machine learning. So let me point out all those things. So machine learning boils down to learning patterns in data. Basically, one thing you need to remember, so whatever we work with machine learning, everything conceptualizes in terms of data. Whatever you see, it is a data. Basically, we try to work with patterns which we try to identify. Maybe it is a just on the face of a person, or it's a cat, dog, or whatever it may be. So we try to identify something or pattern in the form of images sometimes, or pattern in the form of data. Maybe bank account are there. So what actually happens here is we try to get the details relating to what particular learning patterns needs to be learned with respect to data. And second one is, one second. What is the use of mathematics for 1 second? 1 second. Just click back. Just a minute. What is the use of mathematics for machine learning when we have computers to do it all? Maybe you have question relating to, suppose if you have computers already, your computers are there, mathematics is there, so we can work with mathematics, we can work with machine learning. When we have everything with respect to computers, why it is required to learn again mathematics? That may be the question you may have with you. So let me clarify, yes, that is true. Our computers have become capable enough to do mathematics in split seconds. No doubt, within seconds you'll get the results. But what actually happens here is, we just by hand, if you try to do it, it will take much time. So keeping in view of that, so that is also true that mathematics is there. You need to learn mathematics, but at the same time, you are having the perception that computers can do it. So what can be done in such situations? What should be done? But in reality, what actually happens here is, basically, it is not like mathematics we need to learn. Basically, you should know where actually mathematics can be applied. Application of mathematics is very important. Rather than learning all the concepts, if you understand which particular application or which particular function, where it is to be applied, if you learn that, that is more than enough here. This is one of the requirement of learning machine learning. And then here, so here you need to analyze the data and information so that you can create model that learns from the data. Basically, what actually happens here is, we need to analyze the data. Maybe you have so much of data with you. How to analyze the data? You need a mathematics, and then you need to create a model. For that also you need a mathematics. So basically, what actually happens here is, maths will help you in identifying how to solve a given problem, and how actually you can convert your problem into mathematical model, and how you can apply it. That can be learned. And sometimes we feel that, no doubt, maths is giving us so much opportunities. Sometimes why we are rejecting mathematics? We try to reject mathematics whenever we see some mathematical formulae or mathematical notations. We try to reject them, but it is not so. We need to go through these concepts and we can be perfect with respect to that. And then, why to worry about mathematics? Because easy to use machine learning packages are already available. So what actually happens here is, we have so many packages which are available already in many of the programming languages, which you can directly use. That's not an issue. Mathematical packages in Python and R. So what actually happens here is, you got so many packages in Python and R. R is one of the fantastic tools which you find along with Python. Initially, R was more popular, but later date, what actually happened was, Python started creating libraries. Maybe it is in the form of scikit-learn, and then maybe it is in the form of pandas. So many things came into Python, and Python now become more popular with respect to machine learning. And then, so to get really useful results, you need good mathematical intuitions and understand how actually machine learning principles work. Based on that, you can devise or you can identify how actually you can implement mathematical APIs. Maybe some APIs you can use and implement mathematical packages. And so basically, once if you have the intuitions of mathematics, so what things I covered here is basically we need mathematics, which cannot be avoided. Many of you told that yes, without maths we cannot proceed in machine learning. And then what I said is machine learning, yes, you can start with simple examples, but afterwards you have to come across many mathematical terminologies. And then what I said is you should have intuition. You did not have to learn all the concepts of mathematics. That you need to remember. Now, next question is, if you these intuitions are there, then what actually happens? So you need to identify. Sometimes what actually happens is many students or many research scholars I found, they will come with saying that this is the problem I have, this is the solution I'm finding with this algorithm. Many a times that algorithm directly not mapping to the problem in hand. So because of that, you may not get the correct results. Sometimes your data has the potential to give good results, but at the end of the day, because of the wrong choice of the algorithm, you may not get the correct results. And second thing is, so parameters. There are so many parameters which you need to work with. Maybe it is normal parameter or hyperparameter. In such situations, how you can utilize those parameters, how you are going to set those parameters, all depends on mathematics. And sometimes you need to validate your data. To validate your data, you need to recognize over or underfitting of your data. So what is over and underfitting? Basically, what actually it means is sometimes your algorithm, whatever data you give, it will learn exactly what you have given. Sometimes it won't learn anything. So when it starts learning, what actually happens here is, so if it is overfitted, means what exactly what you are given, if it is learning that, then what actually happens here is, if you try to give some other data which is slightly different, it will not recognize that particular data. So for example, say I want to classify cats. So for example, I have taken images of the cats. So if I give 10 cat images, it will try to recognize all the 10 cats perfectly. But if I give one more cat, which is very small one, so it may be kitten or it's a very small cat, at that time, if I try to give its image, at that time it has learned only the adult cats. And when I try to recognize a kitten using particular algorithm, it will try to reject that, saying that this is not the image I have learned. But what actually happens is, if you have your algorithm which is fit enough to generalize whatever concepts are there, so at that time it will be able to recognize that. So recognition of over and underfitting of your data is very important, very crucial. You should not make your algorithm to learn as it is. You have to make it a generalized one. Even cheetah also comes in cat family. Suppose if I show cheetah, then it should recognize it's a cheetah. So that should be the strength of your algorithm. At least it should say that 60% it resembles cat. It should not say that it is not cat. So that should be the way your algorithm should work. And then troubleshoot poor or ambiguous results. Sometimes you may get poor results and ambiguous results. At that time, you should use this mathematical concepts to reject or accept the results, whatever results are coming. So next one is put appropriate bounds of confidence. What actually happens here is, many times you get the results, or sometimes you are getting the data to check whether the given data is within the boundary. Whether, say for example, I'm checking a particular account holder's age in a bank. Its account holder's age should not be below 0 and above 100. So what actually happens here is, whether the confidence, whatever results you are getting, whether it is within the limitations of the confidence limits. What is the confidence you have about the data which is coming to you? So based on the confidence data, you can take appropriate decisions over here. So when I talk about mathematics and machine learning, how they are related. Basically, you can see here maths and statistics. So they are part and parcel of machine learning. And one thing you can observe here, computer science cannot claim itself that I have all the machine learning is totally belongs to me, because partially it's part of mathematics and statistics. Even data science also, you can see that data science, data analytics, they are part of mathematics and statistics. Computer science no doubt has occupied all these areas because of the only reason that we can code it. We can code all the mathematical formulae in the form of algorithms, in the form of programs that can be done. And what machine learning basically uses, what concepts? As I told you, the first one is probability. Without probability, you cannot do anything here, because it uses a concept called as a statistical inference. And next one is validation. Whatever results you are going to get, so you are going to validate those results with the help of probability. Second one is statistics. Statistics is basically for estimating errors, confidence intervals. So sometimes if you want to draw graphs, charts, everything, it comes under statistics. And then there is one more interesting, that is linear algebra. So linear algebra is hugely, it is useful for compact representation of linear transformation of data. Many times you need to represent your data. For that purpose, you need linear algebra. So linear algebra means nothing rocket science here. Please remember, simple vector representations and matrix representation is enough for you to learn about machine learning algorithms. If you know matrix operations very well and vector operations very well, that is enough for machine learning. And then dimensionality reduction. So what actually happens here is, here itself in the linear algebra itself, you will be using it for dimension reduction. Many times what actually happens is, you have huge amount of data, some particular information is not required, it is redundant. In such situations, you can reduce those particular columns so that you can process your information quickly. For that purpose, linear algebra is important. And then there is one more, optimizations. Please remember, this is very critical part of machine learning algorithm. What I have identified is 50% stands on optimization theory. So if you learn how to optimize your algorithm based on certain concepts, or maybe it is a grid search approach, or maybe it is a least squares approach, so our base optimization approach, these are the three critical approaches. If you can throw a light on those things, definitely will be perfect. At least 50% of the algorithms which are written in machine learning algorithms are based on optimization theory. It's one or the other way they use optimization theory. So you need to understand at least these three: grid-based researches, or base theorems, or related to particular least squares, linear least square approaches. So first one is probability. I will not be going in the depth of probability, but what I will be telling is how probability can be used for your particular concepts, where probability is used, and you have to understand where actually its applications will come into picture. So almost all of you know that how probability works. It starts from impossible to total certain. So what actually happens here is, you will be starting with impossible things, and then you will be moving ahead with unlikely things, maybe even chance, likely, and then certain. So throwing of a dice, if you consider 1 in 6 chance is there. Suppose if you are taking something else, some other formula or problem, so what actually happens is, there are 50% chance that someone will be available, someone will be getting it done. So what actually happens is, throwing of a coin, 50% chance will be there. And there are certain other situations wherein 70 or 80%, suppose if two fighters are there, one is very strong, another one is very weak. So at that time, what actually happens is, 80% chance that the person who is strong and fit will definitely win. There is a 80% chance. There is a one more possibility is there. There is one great player who is playing tennis. So say, for example, the topmost player may be there. Say one person is playing. Another one is just entered tennis particular this one. At that time, there is a certain that the other person who is very strong, he is going to win. So certainty is very high. So how it is related to machine learning? You may have certain questions, like probability is a field of mathematics that quantifies uncertainty. So whatever initially traditional deterministic models, please remember, many computer scientists initially thought that computer is only a deterministic model. Meaning what? So whatever you are going to give, whatever information is going to give, so it is a determined one, or it is perfect one, and you will be getting the perfect results. There will not be any question of uncertain information. But now what actually happening here is, you will be getting uncertain data. Uncertain data needs to be processed, and you will be getting the proper results based on those uncertain results. Sometimes you'll be giving in the form of levels, at what level your data is there. So that you will be using with uncertainty. So quantifications can be done with the help of probability. So what actually happens here is, basically we work in, whenever I talk about probability, it works with predictions. So you are going to make many predictions, maybe whether it rains tomorrow or not, whether India is going to win tomorrow in tomorrow's cricket match or not. These are all called as predictions. All predictions again work with probability theory. And then what actually happens here is, uncertainty means with you'll be working with imperfect or incomplete information. So when I consider this, so uncertainty is a foundation for machine learning. And what actually happens here is it will be very difficult for beginners to understand how you can represent uncertainty with the help of probabilistic models. So what actually happens here is, so three main sources of uncertainty you may find in machine learning. What are those three main sources? If I go through that, the first one is noise. So many times what actually happens is whenever you get the data or whenever you start receiving the data, there can be noise in the data. So what actually happens here is, here I've shown one example in one picture I've shown. So what you can see here is some data. So all one particular thing, noisy examples, I have circled it with a green circle. I have put it here. So you'll be receiving huge amount of data from maybe some particular signal, or maybe TV signal is there, or internet signals are there. What actually happens is proper data may be coming to you. So there can be chances that other than a proper data, you may find some data which is not of no use, and sometimes it is out of bound. Such data is called as noisy example or noisy data. Even you may be receiving pictures or images from various quarters. So what actually happens is sometimes you may not receive the image which you are expecting, the color which you are expecting. In such situations, we call it as noisy. So when noisy examples come, probability will come into picture to reject that noisy data. Second one is incomplete coverage of the domain. So sometimes what actually happens is I am having the data, but some particular data is missing in my data coverage. So you can see here, so sales is there in different months. So what actually happens here is, here some particular months I do not have any data. So this is called as incomplete coverage of the domain. And you can see here in the table, what you can see here is there are some temperatures recorded, temperatures as well as how actually the particular training set is there, that is given here. So what actually happens here is somewhere I put question mark. Question mark means what? These are the particular areas where I do not have data. So these are called as incomplete coverage. At that time, you need to fill those incomplete data with either making some assumptions, or sometimes you have to impute the data taking average or some particular concepts you need to use, and you need to add that particular data. And sometimes another problem what we face is, after getting all the data perfectly, after removing the noise also, sometimes we end up with a machine learning model which is not exactly a perfect fit for the problem. In such situations, every model will have one or the other errors. This is called as some particular error is there with the model. How to solve this? Again, you can use probability to identify how skillful your model is. For identifying the skill of your model, again, you can use probability to test how actually it works. And then what actually happens here is, this I explained, incomplete coverage. And then, so many times again, when you want to classify certain data into whether it is yes or no, you want to classify whether it rains tomorrow or not. So this is called as class membership. So if you want to divide the class membership into yes or no category, or into some particular classes, at that time what actually happens is we will be using class membership for identifying. For class membership, what actually happens here is we need to specifically classify one example into a specific class, saying that this belongs to this class, this belongs to this class. Like that we need to classify. So here, assigning the label to every member, whichever data I receive, I need to assign a label. That will be done by probability. Many times, if we use a deterministic model, it will tell just one particular model. But using probability, what we can do is we can assign 60% it belongs to class A, 70 or 30% it belongs to class B, 40% it belongs to class C. Like that, we can make a classification. That is one advantage. Say, for example, here I have classified, or these are the particular dress materials. Nowadays, even every particular marts, they are using this particular probability theory or machine learning to classify the dresses, so that when user makes choices, or whenever he visits a shop, maybe it's online, maybe it's offline, so they will be using this particular concept to identify where actually to which class this particular thing belongs. So automatically it classifies every particular object into one class. And then what actually happens here is this is what, so framing a problem so that you can make a classification in such a way that it takes more than one class, it can classify. It can classify into more than one class and say that it belongs to class A partially, class B partially, class C it do not belong. Like that, you can make a classification using probability. And models you can design. So what actually happens here is, so whenever you want to design some algorithm, if you want to work with one perfect one model you want to make, and you want to pass your data so that you get the proper result. For that purpose also you need particular probabilistic concepts. So this actually comes in the form of naive Bayes algorithm. Maybe those who have gone through machine learning, naive Bayes is one of the fantastic theories. Initially it started with Bayes theorem, basically. Bayes theorem later modified, because the reason was Bayes theorem is a bit complicated, and for that purpose there is one person who actually what he did is he actually simplified the concept of Bayes theorem, and he made it as naive Bayes. And naive Bayes theorem is used in various particular concepts like optimization theory and recurrent Bayes theorems or Bayesian belief networks. In neural networks it is used as a Bayesian belief networks, and in normal Bayesian optimization or Bayes classification this is being used. So here models are designed, these are the particular models using some probabilistic theory. For example, Bayes theorem is a probabilistic concept which is used in machine learning to make classification, optimization, or maybe it is used in neural network to make a perfect classifications. And next here is linear regression and logistic regressions are again the other two concepts where again we are using the concept called as linear least squares. Linear least squares is a concept wherein we try to identify how best we can predict the future variable or future value. So that will be done with the help of linear least squares, because what actually happens here is while identifying a particular line or a particular model, what actually happens is there can be variations in predictions. At that time, we are using probabilistic model to identify a perfect fit for the data which we are going to use. So again, that is linear least squares is used in linear and logistic regressions. And then one more model that is called as graphical models are being used. So in graphical models, I already told you Bayes theorem, Bayesian belief networks. That is a neural network which is based on Bayesian theory. It is being used. Partially, you can map certain Bayesian concepts into that particular neural network, and you can make it a learnable model. So here also this particular probabilistic model is being used. And then another, so as I told you already, that is Bayesian networks. So again, certain models are trained with probabilistic frameworks. So what actually happens here is many times many machine learning algorithms are trained using probabilistic frameworks. So what actually happens here is you want to train some particular probabilistic model. For that purpose, you will be using some concepts of probability. When you define a framework, there are two particular frameworks which are in use. One is maximum likelihood estimation. It is called as frequentist approach. And second one is maximum a posteriori estimation. It is based on Bayesian theorem. So maximum likelihood estimation is basically normal flip of a coin or flip, or you are throwing a dice and you'll be getting 6 numbers which will come, which will be having highest probability. Here what actually happens is it works based on the frequency. So maybe your data is having frequentist approach, or wherein your data is coming in terms of frequencies. 10 comes, 15 comes, 20 comes, like that. What actually happens here is you'll be having in terms of frequency your data is moving. At that time, what actually happens here is you need to use this concept to implement, to design a framework. There is one more, a posterior approach. It uses Bayesian concepts wherein conditional probability. There is one term called as conditional probability. So conditional probability is nothing but, so there is some event is there which is already happened, and you want to predict some other event. That some other event, already one event has happened. Because of that, what is the probability of the event which you are trying to predict? So these are again two concepts which are used as a frameworks for identifying for what purposes these things are used. So one more is models are tuned with probabilistic frameworks. So many times what actually happens is some models are there where I want to tune that particular model. Maybe it is a KNN wherein you need to identify. KNN means what? K nearest neighbor. So I want to classify all my data into different clusters. At that time, what actually happens here is I want to know which particular value fits into which particular cluster. In such situations, if I created only 3 clusters, maybe you will have some problem. If you create 4 clusters, it will classify it properly. Identifying the value of K is very critical with respect to KNN model. At that time, or in terms of neural network, sometimes I will be using a neural network how much should be there in the what are the number of hidden layers which should be taken, how many nodes should be there in each particular layer. Deciding that also is very critical. While designing that, again, probabilistic models are being used. And Bayesian optimization is used for hyperparameter optimizations. Please remember, there are two types of parameters which you need to work in machine learning. One is called as normal parameters, which can be changed over a period of time. For example, in neural networks, adjusting the weight is weights. Initially you are taking something, over a period of time, as and when you start training your networks, so the weight will keep on changing. Or sometimes some other particular information you have taken into your system, at that time what actually happens is it keeps on changing. These are called as normal parameters. Hyperparameters are the one which will not be changed. For example, in neural networks, I'll say that these 5 are the number of hidden layers, and then I'll say 10 is the number of particular weights which I'll be taking. So 5 is the number of hidden layers. This is fixed. Epochs, number of training cycles. Say for example, if there are 100 training cycles if I'm taking, so what actually happens here is 100 is fixed, number of hidden layers are fixed, which will not change. These are called as hyperparameters. Again, probabilistic framework will help you to identify hyperparameter as well as normal parameters. So certain models can be evaluated with the help of probabilistic models. Say what actually happens here is, say I'll show you, that is one log loss function that is called as cross entropy. Certain models you need to evaluate. You cannot say that out of 100 data I've taken, 98 particular inputs are giving me the correct result. It may not be so. Your data, choosing your data may be somewhat different. So while choosing the data, you should have a clear-cut division of your data, and the data should be properly identified. So it should be well mix of the data that can be utilized for training. So log loss function will help you to know which data should be taken to carry out the processes and how much should be there, what amount of data should be taken. These all things can be identified with the help of probabilistic measures. So here, so binary classifications, what actually happens is we use ROC curve. Again, it is based on probability theory. ROC curve is one of the important concepts you might have used in your UG or PG somewhere. So wherein you'll be drawing the ROC curves regarding the results of many of your particular operations. Again, ROC curve is a part of probability that needs to be looked into. So here I gave you the basics of probability which can be used for machine learning. So I have not gone in depth of how to use probability, which is the equation. You need not have to bother about that, because all these things are available as functions or APIs in Python and in R. Directly you can use it, but you should know where to use which one. That is very critical. Second one is statistics for machine learning. So what actually happens here is, statistics means basically you'll be drawing the data. You'll be taking the data, you'll be functioning or you'll be working with the data. So at that time, when you start collecting the data, you want to know how your data is distributed, whether it is only in one side or it is evenly distributed, or it has gone this or that side. To check how your data distribution is there, many times statistics is required. Many times you end up with saying that this is what is the input I have taken, these are the results. At that time, you may come out with some hypothesis. There is something is called as hypothesis. So what actually happens here is, you may be coming out with a hypothesis saying that for this type of data, I will be getting this type of result. To prove that hypothesis, again, statistics is used. And sometimes you need to work with estimation techniques. So what is the confidence level or boundary level for your input data as well as your output data? So because suppose if it displays one loan particular facility is there, it should be issued to a customer with some particular age. Suppose if the age of the customer, it starts displaying 113. So 113 is not the age where any customer will remain alive. So you should have a bounding box. So probability statistics will help you to know, is the bounding box, whatever results are being displayed, are correct or not. So what is the correct efficacy, or what is the value of or quality of the results which you are getting using statistics, which you can check. Next one is here you'll be having statistics is a subfield of mathematics, and you'll be working here with a set of data, and this data you will be getting some answers based on this. And it is basically making numerical conjunctions, means partial based on the partial data you are arriving at some decisions. So some questions you have, for that statistics is the best answer. So here, so what actually happens here is statistics will help you to know, collect information, data, and then you can process it and you can summarize it. So I'll show you one small this one. So this is a spread of COVID pandemic, how actually it appears with the help of a statistical model. This is one small statistical model for spreading of coronavirus. You can just see that. If you have seen this particular presentation, uh, sorry, one second, one second, one second. Which screen is this one? Huh? Ah, sorry. This one. Yes, one second. Sorry for the disturbance. So you have seen this is a. So basically, this is how this appears. I have shown you one statistical chart wherein you can show the data. Nowadays what actually is happening is the statistics is more fancy, so you can see the data in a proper way. You can see the data with animations, animated pictures or graphics. So graphics is much used with respect to statistics, and you can represent the data very well with the help of statistics. So here you are basically reaching conclusions with the help of statistics. Say, for example, I'll be showing here one small picture wherein I'm clustering the data with the help of statistics, wherein I have made four particular categories of data is there, which I have clustered. So statistics will help me to know how each particular category data is distributed. Say, for example, another one I can take here. This is with respect to, again, classifications of two particular store performance. Two stores are there, A and B, how their sales are there, which I can represent in the form of group with the help of a line chart. And then, so here you can see one more. Statistics can be used to see if scores on two variables are related and make predictions. So what actually happens here is, see, you can make predictions with the help of statistics. Again, I use the concept of statistics to make predictions, and I can identify which variables are related, which are outliers, that can be detected with the help of statistics. And then what we can do here is we can answer many of the questions using statistics. Say, which variables are more relevant for me? What is the difference between two particular experiments? Whether the differences between two variables are really real, or is it a noise which is giving these particular results? Many a times what actually happens is we assume that the result is correct, but noise can disturb your data. To identify whether it's a noise or not a noise, you have to use statistics to identify that. So what actually happens here is, using this you can give results and you can satisfy stakeholders or project team and make proper decisions with the help of statistics. Basically, statistics is used to interact with your customers. Whenever you take statistics, the charts and all, everyone can understand. Using that, you can show it to your customer and you can say that these are the particular things. This is how your company is performing. This is where you have to make modifications. Then only they will understand it properly. So next here is, so basically whatever questions we have about data, that can be identified and we can give results with the help of statistics. Statistics comes with one particular diagram. This diagram is very critical one. So descriptive and inferential statistics. There are two types of statistics which is very important. Descriptive means what? Whatever data is there, just based on that, if you are pictorially representing that information, or you are showing some information related to its mean, mode, or median, then it is called as descriptive statistics. Here, you are not going to do anything with the data. You are not going to change any format of the data, or you are not going to process the data and come out with some conclusions. What you are doing is you are going to see the data. Maybe you are taking average of it. Maybe you are trying to identify where which data is present, whether it is present within the bound or not. Those all things you are checking with the help of descriptive statistics. And you will try to count how much data is there of this type, how much data is there of other type. So such things are done with the help of descriptive statistics. One more comes, that is inferential statistics. Inferential statistics means what? Based on whatever you learned or based on whatever data you have gathered, you're coming out with some conclusion. When you want to come out with some conclusion, that needs to be proved. To prove that, we are using a testing called as hypothesis testing. So here again, there are many different types of methodologies of testing. Algorithms are like t-test, student t-test, z-test. So like that, so many are there. So any one test can be used to prove your data whether it is correct or not, or your assumption is correct or not. There is one more that is called as estimation techniques. So you try to estimate here about your data, about the population of your data. How much big is my total domain? What may be the beginning or end of my population data, or what should be the range of a sample, whatever sample you collected, what is the input and output, what is the minimum and maximum values for my sample data. Those all things can be predicted with the help of estimation techniques. Nowadays, what actually is happening is more than hypothesis testing, people are going, or the software developers or machine learning experts are going with estimation techniques, because they are more accurate when it is compared with hypothesis testing. Using here also, you can make some hypothesis and you can test with the help of estimation techniques. These are the two things which are very critical with respect to inferential statistics. Whenever you talk about, suppose if someone comes to you and he talks about some statistics related issues, you try to see whether it belongs to descriptive or it is inferential statistics. So this is how you can divide your information into two types. So next comes is linear algebra. So it is one of the interesting concepts you have learnt in your basics in 8th, 9th, 10th, even maybe in your PU also you might have studied. It is nothing but working with the data. It's a mathematics of data. There is one definition, it says linear algebra is nothing but mathematics of data. So here you'll be basically working with matrices and vectors. So all the matrice related operations, maybe it is like matrix addition, subtraction, rank of a matrix, determinant of a matrix, vectors. Then you will be coming out with particular vectors related operations like eigenvalues, eigenvectors. These all come under this particular linear algebra, wherein we'll be working with matrix or vector arithmetics. So this is one more interesting field which needs to be learned to work with. Linear algebra, actually, it works with lines and planes. You will see basically all predictions work with a single plane, multiple planes. Suppose if you work with support vector machines, there you will find many planes. So there they will try to show you 3 planes, 4 planes. Basically, it is nothing but linear algebra related operations. Suppose if you work with PCA, principal component analysis, wherein you try to reduce the number of features into minimum. At that time also you'll be there. Also PCA considers many of the dimensions. There you try to reduce the dimensions of PCA and you try to work with minimal data. There also linear algebra is used. So scalar and vector representations. You might have heard one more interesting term, tensors. In Python, we are using a term called as tensors. So tensors are nothing but matrix of matrices, or you can say matrices of matrices. Within a matrix, there will be another matrix. Again, you can work on those small matrices which are present within the larger matrix. So this is actually called, you might have heard of TensorFlow also. TensorFlow also uses the concepts of matrices of matrices. So different scalar, vector, matrix operations come under linear algebra. So whatever we work with computers, that is called as numerical linear algebra. And then digital computers are very much good at working with linear algebra and with limited floating point operations. So then what actually happens is nowadays we are getting GPUs, graphical processing units, and these all graphical processing units accept the data or take the data, represent that information in the matrix form, and then they will try to work on those particular data. Deep learning is one of the best examples where graphical processing units are extensively used. And then here, open source linear algebra libraries which are already available. Maybe I think you might have not heard of these terminologies like linear algebra package that is called as LAPACK, and another one is basic linear algebra subprograms or BLAS, and another one is called as ATLAS. But what actually happened here is maybe you work with Python libraries. So Python libraries incorporate these all particular one or the other libraries in their, maybe in their scikit-learn they are using it, or maybe in NumPy. These all particular, or even pandas also, they use these particular algebraic functions which are algebra libraries which are used in Python libraries. So directly you are borrowing these particular libraries in your operation systems. Why we should learn linear algebra? That may be the question you may have. So first of all, please remember that you need to be able to read and write vector and matrix notations. Many a times I find many of the research scholars, they find it difficult to represent their paper. Many times you might have seen papers accepted in journals, good journals, they are totally containing, they will contain maximum matrix notation. They contain mathematical notations. So what actually happens is, if you want to read good papers or if you want to write good papers, you should know how the matrix notations or vector notation should be represented. And all the algorithms, you just go through the algorithms which are not in small normal books. You just go through the basics, or in some research papers, you will find all the algorithms represented in the form of vector and matrix notations. And sometimes what actually happens here is, so these notations will help you to operate on make operations. Maybe it is arithmetic operations you can carry out with the help of these notations. And another thing is, existing algorithms, if you want to read from the textbook, again you need linear algebra. And then interpretation and descriptions of new methods, if you want to propose in research papers, if you simply write in normal English, no one will accept your work until and unless you represent it in the algebraic format or in the form of mathematical notations. No one will accept your work. And basically, so sometimes you want to describe your operations to other practitioners, then also you need to represent the information in the form of linear algebra. And next comes here is, so you should know, what you should know with respect to linear algebra is multiplication, scalars, vectors, matrices operations you should know, and tensor multiplication and matrix multiplications. I find many people find it difficult or try to recall. Please remember that all these operations are already available in Python and R. You need not have to do it from scratch, but you should know the concept. This is how it is going to happen. These are the results you are going to expect. And next, so sometimes what actually happens is statistics borrows many of the operations from linear algebra. So many of the statistical concepts, that is multivariate statistics, uses linear algebra concepts. So that's also one of the important thing. So for learning statistics also, you should learn linear algebra. And there is one more interesting thing, maybe you do not know it, matrix factorization. So what actually happens here is, so suppose if you try to take images, large images, so at that time, every image will be represented in the form of a big matrix. So it may be 200 cross 200 matrix, 300 cross 300 matrix, or sometimes 1000 cross 1000 matrix if you are processing with the GPUs. At that time, processing the complete matrix is a waste of time, and it will take huge amount of time. At that time, you need to factorize your matrix, and every factorized matrix can be worked on different platforms or different servers, or otherwise you try to get the gist of that particular matrix, part of the matrix, and you apply all the operations you want to apply on the matrix, factored matrix, and then reconvert the factored matrix into the regular matrix. So here, matrix factorization is one of the important concepts that needs to be used. And so what actually happens here is linear least squares is again one more operation wherein I'm using linear algebra. And then I have shown here one small operation, matrix factorization. What can be done here is a big matrix is there. I've converted it into small matrices, which I can work with. And then there is one more concept that is called as linear least squares. As I just said to you, I'll just show you before showing that linear least square is another operation which you should learn to prediction. Almost all predictive related operations are based on linear squares methods. You have to use linear least squares to understand linear least squares. You should study linear algebra. And maybe you have questions. Shall I start with a particular book wherein it contains all the operations of matrix linear algebra? No, not required. You should study simple vector and matrix arithmetic. That is enough. Multivariate statistics, matrix factorization, linear least squares. These are the 4 concepts. If you study, that is enough for you to learn machine learning. These are the basics which you should learn. So next, another interesting concept which is used for linear algebra is data. So wherein data and data files, when you want to store it, you have to store it in matrix format. Again, matrix is nothing but linear algebra, that you should know. And then images and photographs, you can see here, all the images and photographs are stored in the forms of either ones or zeros, or in the form of RGB format. So, or in the form of grayscale, wherein the values will vary from 0 to 255. Again, images and photographs, all the image and photograph related operations, image processing applications are based on linear algebra concepts. And one more is one-hot encoding. So wherein what actually happens is, suppose if you are working with categorical variables, maybe you are working with pin code. Pin code is a categorical variable, wherein its value, if you want to add pin code number, it won't give you any good beneficial results. So at that time, such particular things, in my slide I have shown apple, chicken, broccoli, these all things, or otherwise these particular operations, or one more operation related to some colors. So what actually happens is, instead of representing them in the form of character, you can represent them in the form of ones and zeros. This is actually called as one-hot encoding. Many of the applications in machine learning, they convert the information from this textual information into, or some numerical information which do not carry any value, into one-hot encoding format, which will be in the form of zeros and ones. It's again a theory which I will not be covering here. It is one more important thing. Linear regression, as I told you already. So when you want to make predictions, so what actually happens is, the linear regression again uses the y equal to mxc particular equation. That equation is nothing but linear algebra equation. And then one more thing, regularization. What actually happens is, one more concept that is very important, wherein you try to reduce the coefficients of particular equations. Many see, if you want to make your algorithm simple, many times many algorithms which are designed are more complicated. So to work with complicated algorithms, it is very difficult, and sometimes they will overfit your results. To avoid that, what actually is done is, there is one methodology called as regularization. Using regularization, we try to reduce the coefficients associated with each and every equation. So this particular concept is called as regularization, which will reduce the, or optimize, or make it more simple version of your equations. That is called as regularization. And principal component analysis, as I already told you. So what actually happens is, you may have several features which are associated with your data. Sometimes to put which variables are very important, you need to decide, because every feature you cannot take and work on the data, because it takes huge amount of time. Many times one feature is related to other feature, or one feature is not at all useful. In such situations, you can neglect that feature. For example, date of birth and age, these two things are there. Date of birth, if you know, you can calculate the age. You need not to have date of birth and age together in your matrix. In such situations, you can reduce the dimensionality of your particular data. To do that, principal component analysis is being used. So here it works with linear algebra or multiple planes, wherein you try to reduce the number of planes associated with one particular data. There can be several planes. Again, here the concepts of rank of a matrix will come. Rank of a matrix is extensive. Determinant of a matrix, rank of a matrix are used in principal component analysis. And one more thing is, I just said matrix factorization. To do that matrix factorization, we are using one particular component that is called as singular value decomposition, or it is called as SVD. So SVD component, particular concept we can use to divide the matrix, and we can work on small matrices and get the same results what we were expecting from the larger matrix within limited amount of time. That is, singular value decomposition can be learned. And another thing, those who are working with text processing, or I can say it as natural language processing, here whatever documents you try to analyze, that are represented in the form of matrices. And again, to analyze those data in different formats, what actually happens here is we are using latent semantic analysis. So LSA is one of the popular strategies used in machine learning that again works on the concepts of matrices. Matrices is again related to linear algebra. This is how the relationship is there. And next one is recommendation systems. Again, recommendation systems uses the concept of matrix factorization. Again, it is a matrix and linear algebra. So you'll be referring a movie, or you'll be recommending a movie to someone. Again, indirectly, it happens through recommendation systems and matrix factorization. Neural networks and deep learning, again, same thing happens here with respect to, again, we take here matrix for storing the information in deep learning, and convolution neural networks is one of the CNN, we call it as, so wherein all things are being represented in the form of convolution neural networks. So these are the particular concepts which are related to linear algebra. So I have covered with respect to, so mathematics, why it is required. So basically we understood why mathematics for machine learning is so important, why you should learn it. So this is the first point. I try to give my inputs. Second one is statistical concepts, which will help you to represent and infer conclusions about the data in hand. So whatever data you have taken, so you have to represent it in some graphical format. For that, statistics is required. So that is what I stressed upon. Third thing is probability theory. So it will help you to handle incomplete and noisy data. Many times we get so much of data which is noisy and incomplete. To work with that, probability theory is required. And next one is linear algebra, which is very interesting. Most of the concepts, whatever you do, operations, mathematical operations you do, they are based on linear algebra. And how can you use it, and which are the particular concepts you should learn in linear algebra? These are things I tried to cover. Thank you very much. These are the points. I think I took taken much time over here, and I tried to cover the basics of it. I did not cover basically the equations, all those things, because which you can learn at a later point in time. One in the thing you should remember is machine learning cannot be avoided. It has to be learned in some point in time to prove yourself good at machine learning and get good results. Machine learning is very critical. Thank you one and all for patiently listening to me. If you have any questions, you can ask, or you can put it in the chat box. That's also good. I can go through it and I can later reply back to you. Thank you.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes. Hello.
There's one question from the participant.
Hello. I can't hear you.
Sir, am I audible to you?
Hello. Yeah, audible.
Okay. So there's one question from the participant. Which is preferable language, R or Python?
No, I can't hear you, madam. Hello. Just a minute. I'll just try to remove this. And hello.
Hello. Am I audible, sir?
A little bit. 1 second, madam. 1 second. Yes. Please.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, am I audible?
Audible, but it's not clear, madam. Voice is not clear.
So there's one question from the participant. Which is preferable language, R or Python?
Which is the
preferable language, R or Python?
Which is the preferred language, R or Python? If I'm right, this is the question.
Yeah.
See, for beginners, I suggest R language is the best because it has almost all the functionalities well defined. Directly you can use it. It's like a MATLAB. And suppose if you go ahead with Python, you need to write a little bit of code. But at the end of the day, Python is connected to so many other softwares or programming. If you are a good programmer, I suggest you to go ahead with Python. If you are weak in programming, then I suggest say R programming language. That will be better.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
In Indeed, it was a wonderful session, sir. On behalf of KLE RS BCA College Belgavi, who is capturing quality education for the last 2 decades, being an autonomous college who has expertise in facilitating cloud computing and data analytics. With this brief introduction, I would like to propose vote of thanks to Dr. Vijay S. Raj Purohit. Thank you so much for the wonderful session, sir. And thank you all the participants. Thank you one and all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Pleasure, sir. Thank you.